Seems that Games Workshop have teased a massive Great Big Centerpiece kit for the Tyranids. They're going to be getting a new monster called the Norn Emissary, an enormous beast that seems to be driven towards the single-minded annihilation of one particular enemy threat. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking news about a new Tyranid bioform, one that sounds like it's going to be following up the main Leviathan release as part of the second wave of kits that the Tyranids are getting when their codex comes out. Again, this seems quite similar to what Games Workshop have done in 8th edition then 9th edition 40k. They have a great big launch box with a whole ton of new miniatures in it. One of the sides is Space Marines, and one of them is an antagonist faction, first Death Guard then Necrons, and then after the launch box comes out, we get multi-part plastic kits of a whole bunch of things that came out in that launch box, but also some big stuff for each faction to overhaul their range, or when the Death Guard set it up, I suppose. The Necrons got some enormous centerpieces like the Void Dragon, the Silent King, and the Monolith. Death Guard got Mortarion, so it seemed kind of likely already that Tyranids will be getting the same, one or more great big centerpiece models for the army, particularly as Games Workshop seems to like releasing those, and Tyranids were lacking one. Looks like something Titanic is coming for the bugs. We don't really have too much about the new unit, but basically the teaser was on Warhammer Plus, Games Workshop's paid for streaming service that was mainly advertised for animations, but it does seem to produce more episodes of lore masters and battle reports compared with animation these days. Most of the time, a bunch of the lore episodes tend to just cover things that are already established, and the latest episode last week was about the history of the Tyranid invasions, not already hinting that they were going to be going too far into the 9th edition storyline, but it does appear that there's some interesting stuff there. They went through the usual established things like Behemoth attacking Ultramar, Kraken trying to devour Iandin and most of the Eastern Fringe, and then Leviathan and the massive conflict with the Orcs. They have given us a few new details as to the Tyranid assault on Sanctum, and those Soulblade strike forces that were sent to relieve it, and I'll try and cover those in a future video if I do get a chance sometime. I don't know if this is going to be aimed to be a bit of a selling point of their service going forward, if the paid for subscribers tend to learn things before other people. It does seem though that they've been creeping in with a few more teasers and hints first announced on Warhammer Plus before other places though, like when they did that preview battle report for the Leagues of Votan, and that got to showcase a bunch of new rules. In any case, I would say the Norn Emissary is perhaps the most interesting part of the reveal, was just a bit of a throwaway mention though. As for what little we know about this, apparently it's a newly encountered bioform that until now we haven't seen before in the lore at all before the Fourth Tyrannic War. I guess Tyranids are a particularly easy army to justify new models for. They are developing and mutating all the time, getting ever more specialised in taking down their chosen foes. I feel like part of the horror of them is that every single time they turn up, they've got new innovations that are far more difficult to overcome for the other races. High Fleet Leviathan already seem to be taking that to a new level in the Third Tyrannic War, and it does seem that they're getting a whole load of new stuff in the Fourth, it would seem. Apparently this thing was encountered on the world of Sanctum, one that had appeared to be marked as a conflict world in the invasion. Previously on one of the galactic maps that we'd had, they had noted that down as a special area of conflict, and given that that area of space didn't really have any major battles fighting there before now, I did suspect that that would probably be the area where they were fighting the Tyranids. There one is encountered by the Imperial Defenders, reportedly a colossal bioform seemingly able to track the psychic spore of its target from Games Workshop's quote, and apparently the one that was on Sanctum was trying to date down Lord Solar Leontus, the commander-in-chief for the Imperial Guard in Segmentum Solar, who from the short amount of lore that we have on him so far seems to be fairly happy to take a fairly pragmatic approach to the defence of the Segmentum Solar and the Throne World, leading many crusades to meet oncoming threats at the border regions of the Segmentum, rather than being more passive and letting the fight come to him. The wording on tracking the psychic spore of your target seems kind of weird. I would have guessed it was mainly the Tyranids making the spores rather than their targets, but I guess whatever words they're using for it, it probably means a beast that locks onto one target and then goes after it with a single-minded purpose of destruction. If they were targeting Lord Solar Leontus, I suppose it means that it probably might want to take down big command structures within the enemy army. Perhaps if the hive mind realises that one individual is just a massive threat to their operations and ability to consume a world, perhaps they might well spawn one of these horrors and try and take them down. I guess it's fairly fun lore in itself, maybe just a little bit more interesting than this is a fighty Tyranid, but a really big one. Apparently the Norn Emissary on Sanctum was attacked and engaged by a relief force of Adeptus Custodes led by Trajan Valoris himself, and Trajan Valoris engaged the thing in single combat. I don't think the video made it too clear as to who actually won that engagement, but it seems kind of unlikely to me that the great big Tyranid just casually kills Mr. Valoris off camera, so I'd guess maybe it wasn't the most successful first outing for the Norn Emissary. Besides the lore snippet, we've also got a sort of awkwardly posed picture of this thing. Trajan Valoris charging towards it, the Watcher's axe blazing out some bolter rounds there. A bunch of Adeptus Custodes in the foreground as well, utterly dwarfed by this thing. If this scale is kind of accurate on a miniature per miniature basis, then they weren't really exaggerating with that snippet of lore saying it's colossal. It really does look kind of enormous. The standard Custodes right here only come up to its knees, and Custodes aren't exactly famed for being particularly small among the Emperor's servants. Perhaps the most striking thing about it is that rather enormous head crest it's got. Looks like a giant meat cleaver from under which you can just about see a beady eye or two peeking out. Looks pretty brutal and menacing, definitely gives it a bit of a close combat and get the job done type feel. A central head crest does seem to be a bit of a feature of the new Tyranids. The Von Ryan's Leapers also had a fairly prominent one. I feel like the posing is just a little bit on the unclear side from this picture. At first I thought it was kind of Tyrannifex-like, a Tyranid that was walking on all fours with just a couple of massive silent talons, but actually taking a second look it looks a bit more similar to a hive tyrant. I think it's walking on two legs. It's got a kind of spindly set of middle limbs there, and then some great big overarching silent talons that look like they're mounted a little bit set back from its head. Most Tyranids tend to have a six-limbed design, so I think it's going to wind up looking a bit like a massive great big hive tyrant, and in this artwork it's just leaning down to engage Mr. Valoris and all those custodians who seem so close to the ground compared with the height of this thing. Overall seems pretty fun. From the teaser that we have there, it seems most likely to me to be a titanic monstrous creature for the Tyranids. The first word that we learn about it is that it's colossal, and it certainly looks like it's on a similar sort of scale to things like Imperial Knights or other great big monstrosities of other factions, given how much it towers over the Custodes there. I was certainly suspecting that the Tyranids might well get a great big centerpiece kit or two given the Necron releases last time, plus while the Tyranid range I think is already fairly robust, a plastic super heavy did maybe seem a bit of an area that they were lacking compared with some others. Most of the other Xenos races do have a super heavy kit, and the Tyranids were lacking. I remember one of the previous rumours that are covered on the channel made reference to an Apex Swarmlord. This sort of feels like it might fit the bill for that. Kinda looks like an enormous great big hive tyrant on steroids, and unless we can see anything else, it looks like it mainly fights in close combat. I was kind of wondering if they might make something kind of similar to the Hierophant Biotitan in plastic for a Tyranid Super Heavy. Looks like it might be more Hive Tyrant-like though. I kind of wonder if those slightly enormous spindly legs might have been hard to realise in plastic though. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on our new teased Tyranid beastie. I'm not sure how long it's going to be before they start showing off new Space Marines and Tyranids for the next wave of things. Will be interesting to see if they wait until 10th is out and the Leviathan box comes out before we start seeing a few new things for the factions. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k news videos coming. I do tend to post new things just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.